Hey, welcome everybody to Friday's session of CITA's Online Regional Week. We're going to run through a few really interesting talks from industry representatives, taking a look at some of the digital and technical innovations that people are using across Ireland on their projects. So just to introduce you to the, sorry, click on a few buttons here, introduce you to today's speaker and speakers. So my name is Karol Dempsey. I'm a lecturer at LYIT and I'm an architect as well. So I'll run a bit through my background in a minute. So I'll be running through a bit of an introduction to the updates that we're doing here in LYIT, and particularly in terms of the BIM springboard course that we're running at the moment. We'll have Ingrid de Doncker, who's Head of Research and Innovation, Future Planet, then speaking from 1 o'clock to 1:20 on guiding sustainable growth. And following that, we'll have Lisa Monaghan and Mary Aird from Monaghan Pike, looking at the delivery of one Horgenski project. We'll probably take a few questions between the speakers, and we'll do another Q&A session then at the end at 1:40. Okay, so I'm jumping around between about 12 different programs here during the presentation, so what can go wrong? Hopefully everything stays going for us. My background, I guess, in terms of an architect using BIM and kind of 3D digital software, was with Woods Bagot in Melbourne, Australia. And what was interesting about that, I guess, is that we're using BIM, but not on a mandated BIM level 2 procedure. So it was really just purely for the commercial advantages of using digital models for contractors and for design offices and for efficiencies on site. So kind of large scale projects, high-rise apartments where you could really take full advantage of repeatable BIM processes to deliver these large scale projects. Since I came home back to Ireland, then being introduced really to the BIM level 2 procedures under ISO 19650 for the delivery of projects in Northern Ireland. So where you've got that layer of procedures and BIM process, which is documented under ISO 19650. So that led me into into the lecturing side of it, while I'm also running my own practice on the side of it. So that's a little bit into my background. In terms of LYIT, first of all, just to, I guess you may have heard the news that the Connacht Ulster Alliance, which is the joining of GMIT ourselves and IT Sligo for the new technical university, which should be designated and kicking off next March, maybe of next year. So what that's going to mean for us, I guess, is the opportunities for more international engagement and study, more research with other university partners across the world. And in terms of students getting a university qualification in regions like the Northwest and the West of Ireland, from apprenticeships to doctorate qualifications with flexible modes of learning. So that's an exciting time for the IT there, soon to be TU. So what I'm going to look at is the springboard course that we're currently running, and it will commence again in January 2022. And that's a certificate in Revit and 4D BIM. So it's a level 7 course. You get 30 credits at level 7, and it runs through the calendar year. So you've got 2 modules in the first semester and 2 modules in the second semester. For the unemployed, it's free. And if you're employed, it's only €275. And you'll see what you get through that is it's fantastic value. It's 100% online, and I take 2 of the BIM modules, the Revit and the Revit for virtual design, or BIM for virtual design and construction. So there's a focus on using Revit, I guess, to get skills up in the first place to be able to create these digital models. There is also a building energy performance module, which links the BIM modules, linked with the BIM modules to enable learners to develop strategies for developing low energy and zero carbon buildings. So there's never been a more pertinent time to learn these skills, whether it's to upgrade your own home or whether it's in industry. And there's a snapshot of a couple of the projects. I'm going to jump into some of the Revit models in a minute and show you some of the student work, because student work is what talks most, I guess. These are the 4 modules. We've got BIM with Revit, which really gets you from 0 up to relatively competent Revit skills. We have a professional development skills module in there as well, in terms of improving your employability skills with digital portfolios, CVs, online presence. Then for virtual design and construction, then we start to really look at some of the really cool VR and AR tools that once we create these digital models, we can take most advantage of them. And everyone really enjoys that side of it. And with the building energy performance module in there as well. So it's a part-time course. It runs 2 evenings a week over the year. So we've got 2 blocks of 13 weeks modules. So it is designed for those who are in work or for those who are looking to maybe move up the ladder or kind of transfer across maybe from different ways of working. We tend to get entrants in from architecture, civil engineering, services, structural engineering, so it's across the board, those skills, so it's not architecturally specific. One of the advantages, I guess, of the lockdown last year was that we built up a virtual desktop option at LYIT, which allows us to access software on a relatively low performance PC at home. So that unlocks all the software opportunities for people working from home, and you can effectively work from a relatively low internet speed. 2 megabytes tends to get us over the line for it. So to quickly jump into some of the projects, yeah, that's just a note. Most of the sessions are recorded, so if it's a particular question that a student has, we tend to record it, or we record the Revit modeling, the Navisworks modeling for clash detection through there. We also look at some rendering software, which is Inkscape, to, again, not just as a tool to look pretty, but as a tool to kind of explore the buildings in a bit more detail and the context and light studies, elements like that. So the project that I'm going to quickly kind of take a look at is the project that the current Springboard course are doing in their 2nd semester, which is a new gallery project that I've designed for them as a tool to develop in this infill site. And that is the kind of resultant building there in the site modeled through Inkscape. So what they do is develop that Revit model up first of all, and really to get the students familiar with the BIM Level 2 protocols and ISO 19650, is that we communicate and collaborate this model through a common data environment, which for us is BIM 360. So I set up as client and as the service and structural engineer, and then the students interact and start to respond to the employer information requirements document that we set up. They prepare a BIM execution plan as a response. They track their tasks and their delivery through task information delivery plans. And ultimately, they start to correspond with myself through RFIs, which I send out, and then they respond by doing the coordination tasks and the modeling tasks, and responding and ultimately closing out their RFI. So we're following these BIM protocols. They model in some services and structure in there and run through some Navisworks clash detection. So we take them through the clash detection of some services and mechanical, all on that kind of that concept building, that art gallery project. Conscious of the time, so I won't spend too much longer, just to show you a couple of the augmented reality tools. So on the same project, you can see it in the background here, that we've got the digital Revit model of the gallery, and what they've done is used one of the augmented reality tools that allows us to place that model. In this case, it's the structure and mechanical isolated on the desk in front of us, and we can take a look and start to review some of the clashes in that model. We can see ducts here clashing with beams, and that's just through your phone. It's a free app called Horgan, and you export this model from Revit. So they're able to use augmented reality as well as the virtual model to investigate and coordinate the building, as well as Navisworks, Revit, and obviously the production of 2D drawings as well. So very interesting course, and kind of cross-disciplinary, and yeah, great value through Springboard. So you can take a look at that. I'll share the leaflet there for the program through CitA, and you can also contact Anne Boner as the head of department here in terms of looking at that program a little further. We're looking for an application form for it. Okay, so that's a bit of a whirlwind introduction. Some of the work we're doing at LYIT here at the minute. So my job is going to be really to introduce the speakers from here, and feel free to use the chat option on Zoom. If you have any questions that arise during the talk, you can type it in there, and we'll curate those in between the talks. And we've also got 20 minutes at the end, so if any of the questions are a bit more involved and take a bit more discussion, then we can revisit them at the end of the talk. So from that point, I'll stop sharing my screen here and we'll hand over to Ingrid.
Thanks, Karol. Sorry, can you see my screen at the moment?
Yeah, right? We can see that. That's perfect.
Yeah, cool. So thanks very much. And Karol, I might join up. I always loved architecture, and over the past 20 odd years that I've been in supply and procurement, I've dealt with a good few construction sectors, and I always really in awe of all the models and the tools that you guys have available to you. I wish to God procurement would have these tools, and e-procurement started many moons ago, but it has not developed. So might just sign up, who knows. So thanks very much for having me. My name is Ingrid Doncker, and I'm head of research and innovation for Future Planet. Quick background: supply chain procurement practitioner for the last 20 odd years, lecturing like Karol in UCC, Griffith and UL, all around supply chain and green procurement, sustainable procurement. And I'm now working with Future Planet as well. And the reason why is that I got frustrated with I suppose the change, the impact of change that I could bring for one person, one company at a time. So I wanted to scale it, and I found, I suppose, a great digital entrepreneur many moons ago, who's now a good friend, and we work together. Donald Daly is actually in the Irish Examiner this morning, or the Irish Times has a great article of his experience. But I suppose we both had a common vision to do more around one of the most pressing challenges of our time, which is sustainability. And me coming from the procurement side of things and him coming from the digital transformation, we felt we had complementary skills and experiences. So we decided to work together, and voila, Future Planet was born. So why do we believe it's important? We have a philosophy, and I don't know if you know about the 7th generation principle of the Iroquois Indians, but they would say that every decision we make today should result in a sustainable world for the 7th generation in the future. So when we make a decision today, it needs to stand up, and we need to consider all the impacts of that decision, not only for us today, but for the 7th generation. And I think if we look at the decisions that are being made today, that is a problem. So ultimately, we want to change that. Again, as a general statement, I would think all types of organizations have positive and negative impact on the people and the planet. And as a starting point, we do know people are intrinsically good, and we want to act to reduce harm. We want to benefit stakeholders, and we want to contribute to the sustainable solutions. But there's no denying it. Climate change is the most pressing challenge for this generations of leaders. For example, only recently in Ireland, a survey found that only 38% of companies have an overall sustainability strategy. I know from a construction point of view, I do believe you guys are so much further on the journey, but as businesses, we don't have our ducks in a row yet. We know that, and again, COP26 was on over the last 2 weeks, and we have the Irish Climate Action Plan. We need to reduce our CO2 footprint by 50% by 2030, and furthermore, we need to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050 at the latest, because otherwise we won't get to our 7th generation. Every sector has its own challenges. Every business has its own priorities, and it's based on the risks and opportunities in their sector. On top of that, every CEO has its own objectives, but we believe that from an ESG strategy, where we're going to go, it's not aspirational anymore. It's crucial that we all have it. So what we try to do is make it easier for businesses to start on their journey to focus on what matters to them in their own sector. From a construction sector point of view, as I said, I believe that you're well ahead of other industries in relation to focusing around circularity, around sustainability, net zero buildings, the environmental product declarations, all of that. You have defined tools like BIM, which is great to see, where you have digital twins. You have a lot more tools already available than other industries are using. However, your challenges are multiple, because obviously 40% of carbon is being used around in construction, and therefore you're dealing with it from an embodied carbon point of view. You're in your cement, you're looking at ethical sourcing, the impact on the communities. Huge opportunities though for companies who do this well. And again, there's a forecasted 15 billion annual public procurement expenditure for works in the pipeline in the latest climate action plan. And that 15 billion of a spend will be regulated by the green public procurement rules. And I'm happy that our government is actually mandating this rather than advocating. So we're getting a lot more tools from a buying point of view as well to mandate the right decisions. And I'm happy for that. Now, so we believe sustainability is a business transformation problem, and it's not just carbon accounting. It's not just my emissions problem. When we think about the sustainability problem, we think about the planet, which is emissions, air, water, land, waste, but we also think about the people, equality, labor conditions, diversity, agenda, modern slavery, fair play, while you still solve the problem for the profitability of your business. So sustainability is a really complex problem, and currently companies are wading through so much information. There's a lot of negative language even around climate change, and we're all trying to educate ourselves, yet there's a huge literacy gap around sustainability, the priority for the business, how we can bring our employees and our suppliers on the journey. I know this because for the last 2 years, I've been digesting thousands and thousands of studies, academic papers, annual reports, just to try to even understand what we need to do and how we need to make it easier for businesses to start their journey. And that's what we're passionate about. So we're passionate about making it easier for business to understand, engage, act, and improve on their sustainability targets. That's why we developed Future Planet, to scale the insights and accelerate the performance aspect of it. So when we think about our sustainability, we want to make it very simple. We want to understand what we can do in our own business. So how we can live better in our business, and with the focus on ethical business practices while growing our business, while improving our employee engagement, and also improving or reducing the emissions and waste. We want to buy better from our suppliers. And how do we do that? We need to work together, collaborate with them to build a resilient and responsible supply chain while we're managing the risk and we're managing relationships. And we also upfront need to design better for our customers. And therefore, how do we develop, create, design sustainable products, design circularity in and waste out? It's a big, tall order. And as I said, it's not aspirational anymore, it's crucial. Ambition, commitment, roadmap, they're all important. But like Karol already indicated, investing in people, the talent, giving them tools to be efficient and effective is crucial to deliver on the successes. So as you can appreciate, it's a collaborative approach, and again, supported by obviously the ESGs and CDP and all the different standard rating agencies. We need to align, but it is hard. Change is hard. It's not easy, and the majority of projects fail. A Bain study with 300 large companies would have taken a survey, and 12% of all change projects were successful. while 50% delivered less than 50% of the expected outcomes. Now, that's a lot. When we put in sustainability, when we focus on sustainable initiatives, that's even worse. 2% came in on target, on time, in full. The rest was failing. Now, reasons for failing, they were saying 25% of the companies said there was a lack of investment and resources. There was 15% that had competing priorities within the business. 11% said that they actually could not overcome the challenge of the cultural change that needed to be done. And then 10% of companies stated that they did not have the organizational structure. Now, these are core key points why projects fail. They also asked about the projects that were successful, why they were successful. So senior leadership supporting the agenda was the top reason why it was a success. Employee engagement, organizational operationalization was core. Also, clear goals and metrics was a core success indicator. And then the internal communication and the external policies, process, governance model was key. And there are multiple case studies where leaders are achieving high environmental and social performance, and a lot of them are in the construction sector. But ultimately, what we believe is we need to have the focus of leadership. We need to give them an operational, easy system to engage employees and suppliers. We need to collaborate together, and we have to have clarity of goals, targets, metrics, and the governance of communication around it. So when we look back at our live by design, we think about it around the core elements around people, planet, the prosperity in our business, the partners we choose, and the governance we need to deliver. And so this is our map. This is our heat map of the materiality challenges around sustainability that 80% of businesses are experiencing today. So ultimately, for example, for construction, I can already select a few depending on where your focus is. For example, ISO 14001, your environmental management system, or the water stewardship, how you use water, how you treat your wastewater, air quality and pollutions, very important in buildings, social value, how you manage your subcontractors, and how you minimum wage, fair pay, low carbon procurement has everything to do with minimizing as much carbon as we can, waste, hazardous materials, sustainable procurement, how you actually buy and what you buy, when you buy, who you buy from, and what the criteria are. Total cost of ownership and life cycle assessments, which you guys do in your sleep. Other industries still have to go on that journey, and it's a new tool for them. Right, ESG reporting for your business comes from bottom up. GHG, greenhouse gases, carbon trust, community health, how you deal with your community, how you engage with the community within which you construct your buildings, product environmental footprinting, extended producer responsibility, end of life cycle, you name it. It goes further, but there are already great I suppose, materiality issues that construction has found solutions for us, like already Karol has said, around sustainability. So ultimately, we believe that the collaboration around these materiality issues, and again, which one you start with is actually important, but you need to understand that it's bringing you into a realm of a lot of other journeys. And when we collaborate, not only we should focus on our business, we should focus on our supply chain. This slide is actually just an extract of the CDP Global Supply Chain Report of February this year in relation to only carbon emissions. And it clearly states, it clearly states that supply chain emissions are 11.4% higher than our operational emissions. the challenge is big, but the opportunity of impact is humongous. If we only make sure that leadership commits and invests, employees and suppliers are engaged, and collaboration is operationalized, and across the supply chain from cradle to cradle, we all have clear goals, clear targets, clear metrics, and communication is key. And so when we think about a sustainability journey, and as Karol, spoke about Revit and BIM competencies, I honestly believe that what we're building is kind of similar as Revit to the business community than BIM is for the construction sector, because what we're trying to do is we're also trying to build a unified sustainability environment platform that drives more efficient and effective project approach, where project teams can work together and where it's a powerful and secure cloud-based collaboration. Because when we think about the sustainability journey, we first want to understand, where you start. We assess where you start. It's nearly like a GPS. I'm in Cork. I want to go to Dublin. And my GPS, my Google map will tell me what the quickest or the scenic route is. But if I'm in Limerick, it will tell me there's a different route. So ultimately, I need to first define, am I in Cork or am I in Limerick? Because my route will be different. So once we have established our starting point and we know where we want to go, we believe that we've built a platform that will show you the awareness, the learning. We build it through a lot of knowledge and an AI-infused knowledge base that ultimately will drive the transformation and action plan. And I'll show you in a minute what I'm talking about, that enables different teams, internal and external, supported by the software, to make change, to drive change, because we believe it's about the behavioral change that we need to focus on. You can pull out reports and analytics for a sustainable growth for your business. And once you've done a journey, you'll start again, you improve again, because ultimately it's all about improving. So if we just take, for example, it's one of the journeys that we talked about earlier already, circular economy, for example. How have we built that on our platform? If we take that as an assessment first, so this is just a screenshot of our platform around circular economy. And here you will find a question relating to, is circular economy related to training provided by our company? You will get 5 different answers, because we want to assess first the maturity of your organization around providing the right tools for your business, for your people. So you can have options here to select. Again, you will see up high that there's 5 different sections, questions around strategy, questions around people, around the operations, around the value chain, and around the life cycle of your product or your operations. And we have 4 or 5 questions underneath every section, and you can select your relevant answer and you go on to the next question. For example, this one has to do in relation to supply chain, and this one has to do with the life cycle of your product. So ultimately, once you go through the assessment, you submit your answers and you will get your gap analysis report. Your gap analysis report really will focus around the sections, and it'll give you a score. It'll also give you the red triangles, which is this is where you have the biggest gaps. Amber is where you already are making progress, but there's improvements that you can make. And the green butterfly, which is our logo, is you're doing really well, you're leading in this area, and keep on doing and start sharing with your community. Now, what we want to do is we want to use this assessment and turn it into an action plan that you can share with your team. So the platform is infused with the knowledge. It will know what actions to take. And when you click on the view transformation, it will turn it into an action plan that you can actually share with anybody internally, externally. We will already suggest metrics to measure and to report on later on for the business. But here you select your team, you make sure that you allocate due dates and deadlines. So we go into a project flow and we break the elephant down into the small little pieces. We bring everybody on the journey, and ultimately we're going to allow you to see a report of progress. You will see your own dashboard, and you will see how you improve and sustain sustainability in your journey. That's a quick roundup of how we believe companies can do better and how we can make it simpler for businesses to go on a journey. Where you start, it really doesn't matter. What matters is that you start with the critical materiality priority that is important to you. If you want to do anything, follow our Twitter handle, which is corbinwatch.ie. We scrape our great data. So the load on the grid that is going to be used for the next, apologies, I'm just going back, for the next day. And what we've done, very, very basic, we scraped out data, and we want to make sure that we stay below a certain 4,500 ton of usage, and that we then just give you advice of when not to use electrical white goods, such as don't use your washing, or don't do your washing between 6 and 7, because the grid will then need to use dirty electricity, as we call it, so not green electricity. And we'll show you where the sources of energy is coming from. Or what you can also do, because we believe it's everybody's personal responsibility to live better every day, and to buy better every day, and to design better every day, you can just download for free your personal calculator app, which will ask, again, a few questions about how you live, what you eat, where you get your energy from, a few behaviors around your buying, and it will give you your emission tonnage on a yearly point of view, and it'll give you tips of how you can improve. Finally, just come back to me, and if there's any further questions. So
brilliant, Ingrid. Thanks very much. I was going to jump in a few times, but you're in a lovely flow, so I thought I'd better.
Oh, sorry. Apologies, Karol.
No, it's all good. I'm used to trying to get students to speak when I'm working online, so it's nice to have the opposite problem. But no, that's brilliant. What was really interesting for me towards the end of that was the quite often on the larger projects that there is a lead rating target that the project's trying to hit, or there's a BREEAM assessment target. But on projects where that doesn't exist, I think it's great to have an app like this, or a questionnaire, or a process that you can follow through just to raise awareness at the start of the project or during the project. Yeah.
One of our customer is a construction company, and again, you know, the maturity of companies and the journeys they already have started, and you know, a lot of construction companies have great sustainability reports and do their annual reports and have great roadmaps. We come in from a non-construction point of view, because we want to make this as generic to a lot of different industries. Now you can really make the whatever the platform is telling you really specific, so you can change everything you want, so you can make it very bespoke to you. However, the question, what we have heard already a good few times, is the questions we ask, people would not have thought about them within the realm of some projects. And so therefore that independence of questions that we gather from so many amazing work that has been done by academia, by you know, the UN institutions, by standard rating agencies, by standards, we try to get all that knowledge in, you know, in, but make it simple. And the questions we then ask are specific to outcomes we want you to achieve. And again, like you said, an awful lot of times we've been told these questions are really hard and we wouldn't have thought about asking these questions. Half of the questions are easier, but the other half are, let me think about that one. And or that's actually not within our scope to be able to improve that, we need our HR department, we need our legal department. And that's where we're saying we need to collaborate all together. And we want to do this, but actually it's in the control of our supplier. So let's do that with our suppliers. So that's
it's a great trigger, because as you say, if it's not there, then nobody puts their hand up and does it. So having a trigger there is what's needed. I was going to run questions, but we might do the questions at the end then for both presentations. That way we can kind of just run the questions on, and if people need to drop out, they can do so. So thanks very much, Ingrid.
Thank you.
That was a really professional presentation, really, really good. So we might let Lisa and Mary jump in now, and if you guys want to share screen whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. We can see you there now, guys.
Yeah, so you can see your screen.
Yes, yeah, we can see the building there now in context, so that's all good to go.
My name is Mary Aird from Pike Architects, and we're just going to speak briefly about a project we both worked on, Horgenski. So I'm just going to start with a brief introduction to the project. Horgenski is located in the North Docks in Cork City. It's adjacent to the train station and a 5-minute walk to the city centre. The site enjoys a prominent river frontage in the city, and sits at the edge of the North Docklands. So you can kind of see all this land here is yet to be developed. So Horgenski is the first site in the Cork North Docks to be developed. And there's approximately 6.4 hectares of lands here that are not yet developed, which sit at the edge of the city. The overall development consists of a mixed-use scheme consisting of 3 office blocks, an apartment building, consisting of 302 apartments, ground floor retail space, a hotel, and a protected structure which will have a retail use. So you can see the 3 office buildings here, the residential building here, the hotel here. So the first phase of the office building is being completed along with the hotel, and the residential element is yet to start on site. There's also 2 public realm spaces which will be delivered as part of the project. So just to give an idea of where we are with the development of the site. So like I said, phase 1 of the office building has been completed. Phase 2 started on site summer 2021, and the rising elements are just being constructed at the moment. And then the existing structures. So the site is a brownfield site in Cork City. The site used to be the former railway station. So this building here used to be the railway station before the railway station moved to its current location, which is just located at the edge of the map here. This is a goods depot, and this is the building that we're going to be speaking about. So these 3 buildings are protected structures, and this is the site that forms the basis of the overall project. So there's 3 protected structures on the site which needed to be conserved as part of the development and integrated into the new design. So you can get an idea of there from the photographs of what the existing structure looked like before, say, work started on site. And then you can see the elements here outlined in orange. These are the elements of the building that we kept. And there's a lot of internal work that needed to be retained as part of the design. So my colleague Lisa is going to speak about the digital platforms we used to work with when we were constructing the new building. So do you want to?
Yeah, just take it. Cheers. Thank you. So I suppose there's various aspects to the development. You have the existing structure, you have the new office building. There was a car park in the center of the building as well in here. And then you had all the phasing, interfaces as well, which meant that it was actually, a few projects rolled into one really. I suppose the most challenging part of it was the existing building, the goods shed. It wasn't just from a thermal and detailing perspective, but I suppose the coordination of the structural elements in supporting all of the new or the old existing fabric. That was quite difficult. Also, just transforming an old warehouse style building into an open plan office space and integrating any modern like ventilation systems as well. Like it was difficult to do that whilst maintaining the fabric of the building. So as Mary explained, like there was a lot of elements that were retained. So the existing roof trusses were removed from site and they were refurbished. So you can see here on either side of the goods shed, you had like a lattice girder supported by the existing columns. And on the opposite side, there was a box truss, again supported by existing columns. And like to top it off, I suppose there was a brick wall balancing on top of it. The propping of those was crucial, and not just to keep them from falling over, but to be able to underpin the columns as well, running either side of the existing, between the existing structure and the new structure. So you can see there, that's a photograph of the trusses being lifted back into place. So we used point cloud surveys to assist us with the coordination of the existing elements. We found it really good for like spatial planning, and more so for the kind of bigger items like existing stone walls and things like that. And it also helped us to establish the levels at which the trusses were put back on site. The drawbacks, I suppose, with it were that when we brought it into the Revit model, it was quite slow. It was also very difficult to pinpoint exact levels and locations, because the survey was taken of the existing building when there was lots of like foliage and dirt along the top of the walls. So it was really difficult to differentiate what was actual building and what was something that could be brushed away. So we used Revit. The design team modeled everything in Revit. So we were able to use that to coordinate all the different elements. So just a second here. Can I hide this? So one of the difficulties, as I mentioned, was bringing services into the goods shed. So with the new building, it was quite easy. You have all your services up on the roof and they're just fed down through risers. Whereas with the goods shed, because everything inside was to kind of keep the existing fabric, and you wanted to see all the trusses exposed as well. So you didn't want the services kind of passing through too much and obstructing your view of the older elements. So what we did is we decided to put the services down in the basement of the clerk's building over here, and they were routed through under a raised access floor to be able to service the ground floor levels here. And the upper levels are serviced via like the stair core 10, which is the stair core just north of the clerk's office. And they're routed up here at one single point to reach the apex of the roof. So again, it's just to kind of keep the services to a minimum throughout the existing building. I suppose with the new building, just to go back to that, the design strategy for the new building was a steel frame construction. So early on in the design, we had to coordinate the M&E design very early on, just to make sure there was enough time to coordinate all the steel. There was openings in the steel basically for all the services to pass through. So the M&E coordination had to be done early on to make sure that the steel could be fully designed and coordinated. So we used clash detection just to kind of make sure that there was sufficient openings and that there was no clashes with the structure. There's just some images actually of the goods shed as well, complete. So again, you can see the surfaces passing through some of the openings that were designed in the steel beams. I suppose you can't really talk about the new building without mentioning the cantilever. it was quite impressive. It has a 9-meter overhang and it's hung from trusses on the top of the roof. So in the beginning, it was propped up and loaded up, and there was a very specific strategy for loading up the facade on the cantilever before the props were removed. So it was a big milestone the day when that happened. So it looks quite well. I suppose Mary touched on the different phases that were happening. Phase 1 is already constructed, and phase 2 is the cores are just starting now, and steel will be arriving on site soon. So one of the challenges was the connection between block A1 and block A2. I suppose in the final situation, that is, it's a party wall, but in the temporary situation, it has to be a fully certified system that has to comply with all building regs. So that required a lot of thought, and there was some other interfaces around the building as well, which required specific details. So what we ended up with was a fire-rated partition with an SFS wall outside of that, and a stow render finish on the outside. So there's fin plates. There's fin plates coming out of the beams on each level. You can see them here now that the work has started on site for the connection of block A2 for the steel to be offered up to those fin plates. So the idea is that when block A2 is fully weathered, that temporary facade will come down, the stow render will be taken off, and that wall basically reverts to being a party wall. You can see that being constructed there as well. And that's just a 3D rendered image of phase 2 when it's complete. And this is phase 1 complete. So that's the temporary wall here. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed our presentation, and ask me if you have any questions.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Again, such a professional presentation, and the gymnastics between just within the presentation, between the photographs, the 2D sketches, and then jumping into Navisworks, let alone the architectural gymnastics between the existing buildings and the protected structures and then the new buildings in the cantilever. So yeah, you can see why people get excited about architecture, and how well it can be presented graphically. That's a kind of a nice segue too from Ingrid's, in terms of you can see how that how those digital platforms help with creating lean construction and reducing waste on site and clashes and things like that, when you can resolve everything so much like in virtual reality, and you can help retain existing building stocks by doing those things like the digital point cloud surveys and everything. So it does tie back into how these digital tools don't just, like, they've got commercial savings, but those commercial savings do transfer into kind of sustainability savings as well in terms of waste. So brilliant, thanks very much. If we have any questions from the floor, I've got a few I can throw onto the table, but if we have anything else from the floor, I guess first of all on Lisa and Mary's, just feel free to jump in, anybody who might be on the mic.
Alan Ho here from TU Dublin and CitA. Yeah. Thanks, Karol, for all your efforts there this afternoon, and also to Ingrid and Lisa and Mary for some excellent presentations. My question to Lisa and Mary maybe firstly is, like, and I'll put it in the chat there. And I apologize, I missed the first few minutes of it. I had to go to another event, but who was the client in this instance, and is there a requirement for this BIM model to be handed over to the client for operational maintenance?
So yeah, that's something we didn't touch on in the presentation. So the project is a joint venture between, so the client is HQD Developments. It's a joint venture between Clarendon Properties and BAM Property. And BAM contractors are the contractors on site. And yeah, Lisa, do you want to speak about the model handover?
Yeah, so I suppose, yeah, it was BIM level 2. So I suppose BAM are quite proficient in the use of BIM. So yeah, I suppose the model was being handed over with full Quay inputs and all of that. So it was quite well done. Yeah.
Yeah. And is there, is that something that's happening in practice, that, you complete out your consultancy service, and the building looks fantastic, by the way, well done. But what about all that rich information that's in the model? Can that be used, by the client, the operators of the building?
Yeah, so I think that's the idea.
That's the intention, is it?
Yeah, exactly. So for example, any of the mechanical equipment that had specific maintenance requirements, that was all recorded as part of this model.
Okay.
And yeah, so it can be used by the facilities management company in the future to kind of respond to any maintenance requirements that are required in the building.
Thanks, guys. It was great. Super job.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, I might pitch in with another question there. Just that's something that the students often discuss is, was there good clarity for you in terms of what level of detail you knew you needed at each milestone, each stage of the project? Was that set out in the EIR document clearly?
It was, yeah. Yeah, it was set out very early on. Like BAM issued the EIR very early on, and the level of detail and information was very clear for both from the design team perspective and the subcontractors' input as well, following on from that. So it was very clear,
from prior to the contract documents as well. So
brilliant, yeah, because it really is so important that the client actually can lead that early process, or you just get confusion on the way through. So you're lucky you had a very informed client there. It helps the process. Yeah.
And again, from a sustainability point of view, I just want to add, well done, ladies. It looks amazing. The specification, that initial design and the specification and is so core to drive sustainability from start all the way through to the end, because irrespective of what phase of the build you're in, either in the design or the tendering phase or the in-use phase, throughout all of it, we have all these materiality issues and sustainability opportunities to do better. So from a design point of view, was the specification also including environmental criteria and the social criteria? And then in the tender phase, was it made clear to the subcontractors to quote that into their submissions? And then in the in-use phase, because the majority of the even emissions, if we think about emissions, there's a lot of operational emissions in facilities management, and how we can be efficient and through the choice of the material, through the choice of the method of building and the engagement and ultimately the efficient use of what we select to buy. That's what I find so interesting, that the construction BIM too, especially, and the digitalization of the plans, and being able to compare one with the other, the different scenarios of not only cost effective but also impact on the community, impact on the environment. It's a huge opportunity from a digital point of view. So it's it's absolutely the way to go, and construction is leading the way, I believe, for pharma, for food and drink, for public sector, and I can only applaud. Keep it going with all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, brilliant. And I guess and one of the questions in there, Ingrid, was there a sustainability target? Was it a LEED rating or a BREEAM assessment target, or what was the sustainability kind of targets on the project? How was it controlled?
It was a LEED Gold building. So from the beginning, like Ingrid was saying, like our spec actually from the beginning set out any sustainability requirements, and that was implemented during the tender stage and during the construction stage as well. So yeah.
Yeah, great. So question there just on the chat from Wojciech. Does the model include any civil infrastructure or services outside the building that connect into? So was there was there existing services surveyed and then modelled?
There is a civils model that contains some of the services, but I think there are services that mainly relate to the actual office building itself. I don't think that there were any existing services modelled. I could be wrong in that sense, but I think it was just specific to the office development itself. And I think separately the hotel had its own services model, but again, it was anything new rather than existing that were modelled.
Yeah, great. And I guess related more to the existing with the cloud point surveys. I know you mentioned, when you do bring it into Revit, it comes in as this kind of rigid block of an element. And I have come across processes where existing buildings are, I guess, using a plugin in Revit, converting existing elements into Revit recognizable categories. So you're converting elements into walls and doors and all the rest. But I've heard all sorts of nightmare stories about actually doing that in practice. But is that something you guys tried to do, or did you leave it as a?
I don't think we actually tried. I don't think we tried to do that. I think we got as far as bringing the point cloud models in, and they were really helpful. As I said, like for if you had like an existing stone wall that it was a very specific shape.
And I think because the walls were all over the place, and there's a lot of settlement, and like the whole limestone wall had to be underpinned, so like they were kind of falling, and not falling, but there was differences in both planes. So I think it was very helpful for understanding that, especially if there was a piece of steel going in, like where we had the entrance, and it's a steel goalpost structure, which obviously they're just so different in terms of their construction technologies. So marrying those two things together was very helpful for that, I think. And I think having a button that would switch that point cloud model into a Revit model would be fantastic. But but it was a very helpful tool, but it definitely had its drawbacks.
Its limitations. No, it's Revit like straight lines, and I suppose when we do building, when we do our 2D and physical building surveys, it's really just a version of what's there. We're drawing straight lines between points, and in reality, we know that doesn't happen. Walls aren't plumb and perpendicular, but that's just interesting to see that, and that it was still useful to do.
We were asking for a lot of actual physical surveys on site just to double check things that maybe weren't that apparent on the point cloud. Just having the confidence in it. It was just difficult really with the the interference of the foliage and dirt and all of that. So
it was useful to get an overall picture, especially say with the walls and say the base of the wall. You have the kind of like there was kind of plasters on the limestone, and then the base, there's the limestone came out a little bit further. So just to get all those say shapes and everything like that correct was really useful. And then the capping stones, some of them had started to fall, running kind of west-east on the site. So just to kind of get an understanding of that, and particularly where the cantilever oversails the limestone wall, that was really useful as well to kind of just to understand the overall picture. I think it was very useful as a visualization tool for that.
Yeah, and with the clash detection side of it, was it specific to particular disciplines or elements, or was there an overall clash detection requirement on the project in terms of it?
We were mainly focusing on M&E and structural, just because of the nature of the building. As I said, the openings were formed in the steel, so I suppose there wasn't an opportunity, say, for if we forgot, like there was a duct, if there wasn't an opening for it, that would have been a bit of a disaster. So I suppose the focus was always on those two disciplines. So it was mainly those two.
Yeah, brilliant. The last thing I'd ask, in terms of the specification, were you using any NBS kind of links or any other kind of plugins for Revit in terms of that?
Not on this particular project, but I suppose we started modeling this project back in like 2018. So but we're using plugins now for kind of more current projects and using keynotes for all of that. So
yeah. Incredible how quickly it's moving. Yeah.
And I think, Karol, I mean, there's so many digital solutions out there at the moment, but as we heard, it would be lovely to have a button that rev, you know, and I'm that person. I'm actually always saying technology, I'm a user and it needs to be simple for me. And if I can have a button here that will just, you know, bring it back into reality. But then at the same time, I'm a huge believer where, you know, the digital solutions always will have to be enhanced by people, by the human knowledge, and by the reality that we live in. So it's the augmented intelligence, obviously, that brings the best of both worlds together. And again, it's fantastic to see that BIM 2 and Revit and all the other models already do 80% of the work, where we can then build on, you know, with our own knowledge and expertise on the 20% extra.
Yeah, so thanks, Ingrid. So sorry, guys, I have another meeting at 1, and I want to have a quick lunch or bite to eat. But just on behalf of the Alliance, I just wanted to thank Karol for chairing and for the presentations from Ingrid and from the guys down in Cork there. I mean, that last presentation, you're so relaxed there in your conference room, and you know, it looks a lovely room. But I mean, I think it was a really nice presentation, the way you were able to navigate through the different software, the pace of delivery. It was really excellent. So thank you so much. A fantastic job. And Ingrid, we're going to see you again, hopefully on the 2nd of December. You may be aware that the Alliance, I suppose, came out of their comfort zone a little bit this year. We looked at circular economy. We worked with the Irish Green Building Council, GMIT, and the Chartered Institute of Building, and looked at putting together the series. It was an interesting series, actually, and it's going to be we're going to continue looking at our whole sustainability, climate change in 2022 and beyond, because it's obviously critically important. I mean, Ingrid, you mentioned about people, planet. That they're the cornerstones of our own profession, our own strategic plan in TU Dublin. People, planet, partnership is the golden triangle that we're basing our future on. And you talked about leadership and commitment and investment. I mean, that tool looks really interesting. Hopefully, maybe on the 2nd, you can give us a little bit more detail.
I can give you a demo. And again, I just wanted to, for me, because sustainability is such a complex area.
Yes, yeah.
And again, for us, we try to break it down into the small little pieces, and then you as a company, as a leadership, you pick out the one that is important to you and your business and your priority. Maybe you focus, for example, if you're a recruitment agency, or you have, you know, people as your resources, as your expertise, then you might want to focus more around the people element, and maybe from in your own organization, or managing people as subcontractors. So everybody has different priorities, and what we want to make sure is that wherever you start, you will find yourself constantly going into another journey as well. For example, on circular economy, it's nearly like back to the future. You know, let's go and see the full supply chain map from raw material all the way into what is known as waste, but it's not. It should be a value, but ultimately that will bring you into the embodied carbon of material. It will bring you into the business models relating to logistics. It will bring you into partnership models from a co-creation point of view. So it's breaking it down, but ultimately, whatever you improve, you will improve more than element, you know. And again, that's so powerful.
And I know the idea that companies can determine where they are, and that they can determine the gap. So the idea of a kind of a user-friendly framework, a framework that can then outline a process for improvement, and then how they can implement it. I mean, the guys spoke about on the project about the LEED certification, you know, and there's so many different sort of well-being certification, there's, you know, various other certifications. But I think in the future, companies will have to be incentivized or even sanctioned if they don't, build more sustainably or design more sustainably. So I think there'll come a time where we're going to be kind of, there'll be legislation to make sure that we are building sustainably and so on and so forth. So,
and Alan, it's not too far. I mean, again, by 20, like the EU Green Deal, and the EU is pushing really, really hard for net zero buildings. But even from an Irish point of view, the public procurement rules by the end of 2023, we will need to comply with the green public procurement rules, which already, are really clearly defined and outlined. And if not, then you won't be allowed to put in your proposal. It's a pass or fail. It's a yes or a no. And that's where I believe, while I'm always for businesses and people are intrinsically good, but sometimes we're too busy with focusing on the money. We now need to make sure we focus not only on the money, but also we need to focus on growing while protecting our planet and safeguarding the people. It's not a one bottom line anymore. It needs to be the triple one. So, and again, our government will be mandating the green public procurement rules. And there's a huge opportunity for construction companies to actually have a competitive advantage that way, right? So if you're green and if you can show your sustainable strategy and you can show your criteria, you're well ahead of where others are who haven't. Yeah. So it needs to be seen as an opportunity, not as a risk.
Yeah. Thanks, guys, and thank you to Lisa and Mary, and to you, Karol, as well. It's been a busy week. We've had a great turnout for the region. We had our awards for the bin gathering on Tuesday as well. So I know it's been a crazy week, hasn't it? Because so much has happened in the world of COVID-19 and how businesses have had to pivot just this week, even today, what they're going to be doing for the next number of weeks. So, but the universities are still open. So keep going. Okay, so
Alan, sorry, we might actually as well, say something about the discussion group for next week, if you want to.
We
mention it anyway.
Yeah, we are planning a series of sort of drop-in meetings next week. Lily, you might remind me of the dates again. But the idea basically is we're putting together a plan for 22. And we're trying to get members and other people that we know within our network to join these meetings and just to share your thoughts as to the future directions of the industry and so on. And so we're looking at kind of a broad program next year, which has a strapline of challenge, change, learn. So the idea that we're going to look at all these different challenges, look to see what it is that has to change in our sector. And then how can we learn from other countries, other industries, and how we can move forward. So this is the plan. So we need to know what are those specific topics. I think sustainability, climate change has to be there. I think productivity has to be there. And the communication challenge that is using ISO 19650 and other standards, how can we actually start as an industry to work forward? And we've had, developments in the last few weeks with Build Digital. And there's been an announcement that the government CitA are thankfully involved in that, or gratefully involved in that. So we want to try and hear from architects, engineers, surveyors, contractors, academics, whatever it might be, to really help us put together a vibrant program for next year.
That's perfect. So
thank you.
Thank you very much. And the dates are the 23rd, the 24th, the 30th of November, and the 1st of December from 1 to 2. And you can register, your place on our website. Okay, that would be great, if you could actually attend. Anyway, I just wanted to thank everyone, and thank you for your support, and thank you, Karol, for chairing the session.
Thank you.
Very welcome.
Thank you very much, guys.
Have a great weekend. Take care.
Thank you.